Welcome today to us talking about storage and submission solutions. We're looking a lot at some of the things that have to deal with when you have students who might have low bandwidth, but there's going to be some other things that we're going to talk about as far as students who have issues with different things in WT class, both viewing content as well as looking at assignment submissions. So the main things we're going to talk about, kind of like I mentioned, were issues that we see, the issues that we commonly see from students when they're looking at content and when they're submitting assignments. So firstly, one of the things is when students are submitting assignments. I'm going to start with when they're submitting assignments and then follow up with when they're trying to view your content. So one of the main things is size issues, and we see it a lot when students are trying to submit videos. There is a 150 megabyte limit on sizes for files that are uploaded into WT Class. This is both from the faculty side as well as the student side. So oftentimes when students are doing video submissions, they have a video project or something that they have to do, their files are quite often larger than 150 megabytes. A lot of this has to do with the file resolution that they have. Do they have an HD camera that they're taking it with? Are they using their iPhone? What are they using? And oftentimes they have it set to a very high, very max resolution that makes a much larger file size. So some of the options that we generally recommend then for faculty is whenever you do video assignments, offer different options for your students to submit files to WT Class. So instead of actually uploading those videos into WT Class, ask them to put it in YouTube. They can upload the video as an unlisted video, and then they can provide the link for that video to you in like the assignment or however you're wanting to get that assignment from them. They can just send you that URL to the video, and then you can still view it. Some people then come back and say things like, yeah, but what if I don't want to take the risk of my student accidentally putting it public so that everyone can do it. Maybe it has some content in there that might be controversial, or maybe it has content that doesn't need to be available. You have like your education professors or something that might be actually showing us, interaction between students or something like that, and you don't want it on YouTube. Another option is to have them uploaded into their OneDrive account. Students have access to OneDrive through their student email account with up to 1 terabyte of space um, that they can use to upload files into. And so they can upload that video submission into OneDrive. Again, there's a way that they can share that video with you, get the URL, and again, they can submit that URL then into an assignment or however you're wanting to get that file from them. Directions for how students can do this is available on our students' website. Basically, I provided the link down below. This is also available through like the help tab as well on how to submit assignments. And then basically at the very bottom of that page, there's information on submitting a video assignment using YouTube, submitting a video assignment using OneDrive. So we already have instructions to help your students be able to figure out how to do this. So those are some different ways that you can have your students submit videos to you without having to worry about file size restrictions within WT Class. And so then our next one is looking at, okay, so now we've done videos, but what about documents? So these are, your Word, your PowerPoint kinds of files, sometimes those PDF files. Again, there's still that 150 megabyte file size limit, but some other things that typically we see with files such as Word and PowerPoint are that students have a lot of images. And again, there are those high resolution images that they took with, something, their iPhone at a high resolution, a professional camera that just creates really large file sizes. And then whenever they put them into that PowerPoint, it's not compressed. And basically we have instructions for how can students compress those images within Microsoft Word, within Microsoft PowerPoint, and how they can compress those images so that file size becomes reduced. We have directions for both PC and Mac. It's on that same website as you just saw from how to submit video assignments. It's just above those for how to compress those documents. And so sometimes that's the same type of issue when you have a PowerPoint, because it's a Word file that they converted to a PDF, sorry. Sometimes we have that same issue with PDFs, and it's because it's a Word file that was converted to a PDF. But sometimes they can be things like worksheets instead. So these are typically we see these when you have a student who has scanned in or taken a camera image, taken a picture of something that they filled out by hand. So they got the document, they wrote on it, and then they're trying to submit that document back to you in a digital format. So there's different things you got to think about whenever this, kind of what is this worksheet that you're trying to have them submit? Is it something that could be converted to a test format instead? Could you have the instructional designers on staff here help you with converting these worksheets into a format so that they're all graded online? That doesn't necessarily mean that it's all automatically graded. There are, open question types, essays, short answers, things like that. It gives you the ability to also then actually be able to grade one question at a time so that everyone that has, a specific question, you can grade all of that same question at one time. Can help with, not having to think, okay, now what question is the student answering? Okay, now what is this question student answering now? You answer all the same question, move to the next question, grade all the same question, move to the same question, next question, and you can grade it that way. You can always grade it one student at a time as well, but it gives you more flexibility in how you're going to grade a particular test. Some other considerations you got to think about, or that we want you to think about whenever you're doing these types of worksheets. While you may say, well, my students aren't having any issues submitting them, they submit 2 to 3 images each assignment, isn't that large. It's, 20 meg for each one. Well, in one student submission, if they're submitting 3 files, that 20 meg file is now 60 meg. And then you take that across your 20 students. Well, that 60 meg is now times, by your 20 students. So that's like 120 megabytes now. Well, if you do this same thing every single week or multiple times for multiple assignments in a week, that 120 megabyte file for one assignment now becomes multiplied across all, and you easily become 1 gig, 2 gigs. We have some courses that have some of this going on that are 15 gigabytes in size. And it's because it's very small pieces, but the small pieces add up to a lot. So some of this looks at, is there other ways to help us save on our space capacity that's being used? Because the less space capacity that's being used at any time also helps our system with staying speedier, working faster, less issues, less error messages that can come up by saving our space. So some other things you kind of got to think about whenever you're looking at potentially doing worksheets in a class is different ways that you might have this, have your students submit this. All right. So then the other kind of question, while it's not really truly an issue with submission, but how many, of faculty get this question of, but I know I submitted it to you. Why did you not get it? Well, there are things that you can do to check to see, did this student try to submit this? So one of the things is to look in the Grade Center history for a particular assignment to see if perhaps that that attempt got cleared. So you can do this by going into the full Grade Center, locating the student's cell for that assignment. You click the drop-down menu and click on View Grade Details. On this page, there's then a grade history kind of area, kind of in the middle. You click on that little link and it will show you basically what has gone on with this assignment. So you can see kind of in my little screenshot on February 4th, Krista Favela preview user submitted this. It got a 20 on it, but then you can see that on March 25th, me, Krista Favela, cleared that attempt. So then I can start to look, okay, why was this attempt cleared? Did my student ask for it to be cleared, but then they didn't resubmit? Did I accidentally clear the wrong student's attempt? I can start to look to see why they might not have a grade in here. Additionally, if you come in here and you see no grade history, the other thing is to look for is to run the student overview for single course report. And you can look to see if there is an attempt to access any of these. So on the screenshot on the right, this is the report that comes out, and it basically gives a list for what was clicked on within the course. We can see in here it lists an assignment, it lists a file, a content folder, a test, a Turnitin assignment. We can see all the different things that were basically clicked on in this class. Now we can also, or in the time frame that we selected within this class. We can also see that like the lessons folder, it says that it was clicked on 4 times, but it's only telling me the first time it was clicked on. So just take note of that. It's not going to necessarily tell you each of the subsequent times, but it will tell you that first time it was clicked on. But if, for instance, the student was trying to take quiz number 7, if I run this report and I don't see quiz 7 on this report, chances are the student never took it, because how can they take it if they didn't click on it? Again, this isn't going to tell me whether they took it. It's only going to tell me if they clicked on the link for it. So I can see that this student did click on each one of these types of items, but it doesn't necessarily tell me if they actually submitted it. So you have to be leery of that. You have to be aware of that. But again, if the student didn't click on it, how did they complete it? And quite often when a student comes back and says, I know I did it, I know I did it, you run this report and you're going to find you didn't click on that particular assignment. You send them a copy of this report and they drop it because it's like, oh, well, there you go. It shows I didn't submit it. I didn't do it. So like I said, I just wanted to let everyone know that there's that way, because we do have a lot of students that come back saying, I know I submitted, and a lot of faculty say, well, how do I know? How do I know if they did or they didn't? Well, here's a couple of ways that you can take a look at different things to see, did your student try to submit something? All right. And so I wanted to take a second then to say, is there anyone else having issues or have had issues with students, things that they've said, I tried to submit this, but it wouldn't go through, or, it wouldn't work? I thought I'd give everyone just a minute to see, answer in the chat box, to let me know, are there any other things that people have seen with issues with submitting assignments from students? So Dave mentioned that he's had issues with students saving instead of submitting. Yes. Several different things have an option for save draft instead of submit. And so they save it as a draft and they think, oh, well, when it's due, it's just going to submit automatically. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that way. If it is a test, there are ways to have it submit either automatically or by you going in and submitting it. But as far as assignments are, no, there's not a way to automatically do it. And unfortunately, you can't see anything really. Assignment wise, you see absolutely nothing other than, they started something. That's all you can see. And then that kind of brings up also the Turnitin assignments. A lot of students will say that they know that they did Turnitin assignments, but if they don't actually click through all the steps, and there's always one extra step with Turnitin than just a regular assignment that students often miss. And so if they don't get that extra click in, then it doesn't actually submit it. One thing to always remind students with both assignments and Turnitin assignments is that they will get a receipt to their student email account. If they don't receive that receipt, then it did not successfully submit for whatever reason. They didn't click all the steps, they didn't give it enough time, something went wrong during the submission. And so making sure that they actually submit that fully by checking that email can help them as well. If they didn't get that email, go back and double check and try to submit it again. Vanessa mentions several students that do 0-byte submissions. So there has been, and there still technically is, an issue with Microsoft Edge and submitting assignments. If their document is open on their computer when they go to submit it, when they go to attach it and submit it, then yes, they may get a 0-byte submission coming on. There's been an update with WT class from starting last fall, that basically there's a pretty big kind of, I'm going to say, error message that basically warns them, you're using Edge, please don't open up this document. That doesn't mean that they're not going to, not read that, but it does warn them, and we've seen it, our issues with this go tremendously down. We still have a report that runs, that kind of gives us an eye on it, and it's running about 1 to 2 people each, week versus 20 to 40 each week. So this is definitely helping that as well. So that can be something, we're not seeing as many of the 0 byte file submission errors. And then, okay, so Jackie, can you go over how to run the assignment report again? Okay, so the assignment report, you go to, in your class, you go to evaluations, you go to course reports, and then it's the third from the bottom. I never can remember what the title is. Let me back it up so I can tell you for sure. Oops. It's a student overview for single course. It's the one that's above the one for forums, basically. And so you basically, when you go there, you click the drop down, you click run. It asks you for what the student name is, what dates you want to run it for. So typically it's like, when was that assignment available to students? And then you click submit. You got to give it some time. It takes it a really long time to run. It'll open up in a new window. If your browser basically blocks it, then it'll also bring up a screen that says, what do you want to do with this report? And you can say to open it again, and it'll open up that report in a new kind of window. And then it'll give a lot of other information besides what is on my little screenshot, but this is kind of the most important area of the screenshot, in my opinion. Some of the other areas can be misleading because it gives you like time within the course and different things like that. And so it doesn't always mean what you think it means. And so I always say, come straight to this part and just look for, did the student actually click on the link? Also on this area, it says total time spent in hours. Just be aware of that. It's kind of confusing as to how it renders out with, the 0.1 and 0.2. And what does that mean? Does 0.28, does that mean nearly half an hour? Is that half a minute? Is that, what does that mean? And so just be aware of that it's hard to figure out. So I generally tell faculty, don't worry about the total time spent, because again, it's based on clicks and different things. And so it's not really always what you're expecting it to show. So just be kind of aware of that. All right, hopefully that answered your question, Jackie. And then Patrick, what is a web archive file? I'm seeing that on a student submission. A web archive file, if I remember correctly, it's not a file type that you can open. It means that they submitted basically the wrong file. It can be things like Word. When you open up Microsoft Word, it creates a secondary kind of draft file, and sometimes a student submits that other file. Well, it's not the actual full file, it's just a component of it. And unfortunately, the only thing to do is ask them to resubmit the file. It just means that they have that file open and they selected the wrong file. They selected this kind of semi file instead of the actual full file. Oh, Web Archive is a result of Safari. Okay, there we go. I've seen it before, but I couldn't necessarily remember what it was. Bad Safari, yes. Safari cannot play well with things sometimes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you've seen any other issues with submissions, please let me know, and I can talk through them as well. All right, so then looking at the other side. So what happens when a student is having issues with viewing content? So the first one is looking again back at videos. Students report that they cannot view a video or it keeps trying to load. So one of the most important things, and the thing that we most often see with this, is that the video is actually uploaded into WT Class. And so what we always recommend and always request is that you upload all of your videos into a streaming site and not upload it directly into WT Class. Uploading into WT Class causes a lot of weirdness to happen with those videos. Some students have no problems at all, but if you're on a slow internet, basically they have to download the full video before they can even start to watch it. And I've even seen that if they start to watch it before it started to download it, or before it finishes downloading, it basically stops downloading at the point that when they started watching it. And so it will never go past that part when they're trying to watch it. And so by having it inside of Ensemble or YouTube, it helps to prevent that issue. So Ensemble, if you don't know what Ensemble is our streaming media server. If you are doing Zoom recorded sessions now for any live classes, they should be automatically migrating into Ensemble. Ensemble also allows you to upload your own videos in there as well. Some of the other benefits to using Ensemble over things like YouTube is that if you have a hearing impaired student or you have students who are having issues viewing their videos, IT can help, you and your students with that. IT can help with creating closed captioning for your hearing impaired students. They can help you with compressing video if the video might be too big and a student is having issues with it for that. We have other ways to help those students if they're having issues by it being on our server. However, on the other side, if you do use YouTube instead, students are used to watching YouTube videos, and so they don't have as much issue. We also have students who might not necessarily be in America or in Texas, and they might be in a foreign country somewhere. And so we have some students who have issues with Ensemble sometimes because they're so far away. It's having to travel so far. They have a low connection. All those kind of things add up to having issues. Where YouTube, they may not have that issue simply because YouTube has servers that are duplicated all across the globe. And so it may not have that video file may not have to actually travel as far to get to them, where Ensemble it's traveling basically from Canyon, Texas to wherever they're located. Neither one is necessarily better than the other. It has pros and cons to each. You just kind of got to weigh what's going to work best for you. And then also just kind of reminders on help saving safe space in WT class. When you upload a video into a course in WT class, when you copy that course into a new class, if you reuse that video, now that video is now on our server twice. So if you teach 2 sections of the same course, it would be in your course twice. And then when you teach that from spring to fall, and you teach 2 more sections in the fall, now that file is on our server 4 times. And so you can see where that file can become very large just because you're reusing the same video. Where if you have it in Ensemble, it's in the system one time and you can link to all of those courses, and it's automatically, and it's there, and you don't have to worry about it duplicating basically the content across different courses. All right. And so then the other one that we don't see as often, because Chrome has created a fix for this, but we still every once in a while get students and faculty that say that when they're viewing a PDF, only 1 to 2 pages appear for students. Like I kind of mentioned, this was an issue specifically with Chrome at one point, and if you just ask you or your students to switch to a different browser, it will clear up the issue. Basically, it's students are not letting the entire file download before they start to scan it, and so it stops downloading anymore. There's also a setting that you can change if you have the full version of Adobe Acrobat. There's a setting that can be changed to help fix this issue. But it's not something that you necessarily have to do. I just like to point it out because we did have an issue with this in a last year, but we no longer are seeing it or are no longer hearing it, but wanted to point it out in case anyone is still having this issue. All right, so I'm going to take another minute to see, is there anyone else having any issues with content that is uploaded for students that you might have students having issues with? Issues with films on demand at the library. So permission to pull films on demand through Ensemble? No. You don't have permission to pull a video from Films on Demand and add it into Ensemble. However, Films on Demand is kind of similar to things like YouTube and stuff, and so that is another streaming media service. So having it on Films on Demand and sending your students out to that should essentially have the same effect as adding it to YouTube or Ensemble. So on YouTube, embed or just share the link. It really doesn't matter either way. It doesn't seem to affect students Either way, the positives to embedding it over sharing the link, of course, are you keeping your students inside a WT class versus sending them out to YouTube where they might get lost on their cat videos and other things like that. Again, neither one is better than the other. It's just kind of your personal preference and what you're trying to do. In my classes, I've embedded some videos and I've shared the link for others, just depending on what I'm doing with those videos. Sometimes, what am I having my students do? Am I having them write a paper that goes with it or write a discussion board with it? I generally do a share link so they can open it up in a separate area, where if it's embedded, they're having a harder time sometimes viewing it and being able to complete the assignment. Any other issues with content? All right, so I'm going to move on. And if you have anything else, feel free to let me know. Oh, does the embedded link for Files on Demand use my login authorization? So with Films on Demand, if you talk to the librarians, they will give you basically some things that you can put in that Films on Demand URL code that will allow your students to be authorized through their login. By logging into WT Class, it logs them into Films on Demand. They have a little bit of an extra, like I said, some extra stuff that they can add on to the end of the URL that will make their login work. It doesn't use your login, but through the library website, basically they have access to it, but the librarians know what needs to be added, so that it can be added into WT Class for it to work. All right. So this one is kind of a quick and simple thing. It mostly depended upon how many questions and issues other people were bringing up. At this point, it was kind of, does anyone have any questions? And kind of a reminder, if you ever need help with your course, if you have some of those worksheets and are looking to turn it into a test, let us know. Email us. We have tech training email, or email any of one of us, Yvonne, Chris, me. You can email any one of us and we can walk through how we can help with any of those things. If you have any assignments that your students are having issues with, let us know and we can say, okay, we can try to see if there's another way you might want to try to do it. Maybe the way you have it isn't necessarily bad, but maybe there's a different way that you could approach it to see if maybe this would help your students be able to have an easier way with submitting it. Again, we're always here to help. If you have any questions, any problems, need any help, need any suggestions, alternatives, different ideas for different things, let us know. We have a wealth of knowledge amongst us for lots of different things. We're not just technical support. We have a lot of different things that we can help you with. We just need to know what things you might have going on, what questions you might have, what issues you might have, for us to be able to help with. Not seeing any other questions kind of popping up. So I want to give everyone thanks for coming. I appreciate everyone coming. I'm going to give everyone just a couple of extra minutes in case anyone does have any questions. But other than that, thank you all again for coming. And again, kind of a short and sweet day to get through stuff. So I hope everyone has a great weekend if there are no other questions. Thanks.